Hey, what's going on, everybody? You're tuning into another episode of 20 Tim Minutes. I am your host, Tim McCarthy. Today we have on former pro basketball player who played for the Denver Nuggets, the great Boston Celtics, who also has an ESPN 30 for 30 special on him called Unguarded, a man who has battled addiction throughout his career and will be coming up on 14 years sober as of August 1st, 2022. This man is now helping millions of others with addiction abuse and is now a motivational speaker. Chris Herren, how are you?
I'm good, brother. I'm good.
Thank you so much for taking the time with me. So Chris was a standout All-American McDonald's basketball player in high school from Fall River, Massachusetts. Your story is very well documented. If you haven't checked out his 30 for 30, definitely go check it out. But can we just dive right into the beginning of like how you got into drugs in high school?
Listen, I think the progression was pretty innocent. It was kind of the culture to go out and drink on weekends. Then you get to like 12, 13, 14 and maybe sprinkle in a little bit of marijuana in that party. And people observing me in high school, they probably wouldn't say that out of all my friends, I was going to be one of them that really struggles. But I also had the genetic component chasing me down. I had a little family trauma chasing me down, and then sprinkle in, a high-level athlete at a very young age, being recruited by many. Processing that was not something that I had any understanding of. So really, it was kind of the perfect storm in a lot of ways. The scariest thing about drug addiction is nobody knows who has it. At 12, 13, 14, 18, you have no idea you're the one that's gonna struggle with it. So, but it all started with drinking my father's beer and smoking, older kids' marijuana.
Yeah, right. What type of person were you in high school? So with like being a big star athlete, just partying on the weekends, you think you were untouchable back then?
No, I never thought I was untouchable. I was probably very insecure, very always conscious of who I was with, where I was at, how I was being perceived. My circle was very small. I kept my circle pretty small. And that being said, I also just wanted to hang out with the kids that did what I did. I didn't want to hang out with a kid who was completely focused on what he was trying to achieve, because I was the furthest thing from that.
Right.
But I think insecurity probably drove a lot of me back then. I think it probably dictated a lot of my personality back then.
Now, I feel like a lot of addicts are really good liars and keeping it off. So that's probably like a big thing. It's like you play better defense with saying like I'm fine. So like no one had any idea back then, really, except for your close circle.
No, I mean, listen, I think at 18 years old when I went to BC, and I realized as a scholarship athlete I was going to be held to a standard in compliance with NCAA where I could not fail drug tests. And I realized pretty quickly at 18 years old how much I had leaned into that stuff, or leaned on, how much of a coping mechanism it was for me, and where I was getting relief from at the time. So once that was pulled away from me at 18 years old, obviously, failing 3 drug tests at BC in the first 4 months, caused me to be suspended a year and basically expelled from Boston College. You got to know at that age right there that, drugs are a little more than what you want to say.
And that was just the tip of the iceberg for you, because you broke your wrist as well at BC, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I broke my wrist in my first game, which wasn't, I don't know if it would have changed anything. I really don't. I don't think it would have. I was partying hard, even when I was getting ready to hoop. Preseason, I was still, doing blow and smoking, and
right.
I really didn't care. So I think a broken wrist, if anything, it just kind of sidelined me and let me kind of self implode on my own rather than in front of, you know, 15,000 people.
How did you feel so many drug tests? Like when you took one, were you just like, yep, this isn't going to go well, but I kept repeating? Like, you just not care? Or you just like, oh, we'll roll the dice on this one?
No, you care, but you try to manage it, right? It's like, you know, you try to chase. It's always the chase. It's like, okay, I can smoke today because I'm not going to get tested for 3-4 more weeks, and it will be out of my system then. And I'll drink tea, and I'll, you know, flush my system with water, and I'll do everything that they tell you to do, except it never works. You know, they don't tell you it doesn't work.
Yeah. I always hear friends with that. They're like, oh, drink cranberry juice and pickle juice, and you're just drinking all these different cocktails.
Yeah. It doesn't work. None of it works. So, you know, I never wanted to or planned on, you know, failing drug tests. I didn't know how to go through life on life's terms without it.
So then after this with BC, you're suspended by them, not the NCAA, and then you get a call to go out to Fresno State, kind of a second chance, and they took a gamble on you. But you also said you had a tight circle in Fall River. You also had people from Fall River come out who, like, people that you would party with, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when you take people out of Massachusetts in different states, they turn it up just a little bit a notch because, like, oh, you're from Massachusetts, and they rip it. That must have been difficult because you were absolutely killing it at Fresno State, and you're still battling this. So,
yeah, I was. I mean, my sophomore year was probably my best year. You know, I think if you look back and see pictures, you know, just me on the basketball court sophomore year as opposed to senior year. You know, sophomore year, I look like an athlete. You know, I'm obviously very engaged in myself and my physical status. So I was constantly in the gym, constantly working, and then slowly, you know, my addiction started kind of creeping back in. And, you know, before you knew it, you know, it was an every weekend thing. And having people from home, you know, they didn't have jobs. They just woke up late and partied early, you know.
Looking back at photos at you, you were very a 90s basketball player with the blonde tips, and then you got the blonder hair. Like that, nothing says 90s like your look back at Fresno State.
But see, here's the deal, right? Like, try to find people who did it before me.
I agree with that. I agree with that. You were a little bit before the times, and I like that. Was that just your idea? You're like, no, I'm going blonde.
Nah, I hung out with these Mexicans, right? That we did a ton of blow in a barbershop. And he was, you know, we were all whacked out, and he was like, hey, why don't you just let's try to put some tips in your hair. And then it was like, let's shave it and dye it platinum. So yeah, you're not gonna, I don't think you can find, and I say this all the time, I try to find a college basketball player or college athlete in the 90s before me who had it. You're not gonna find that person.
Yeah, that's a great distinction. I like that a lot. So you're Fresno State, you go senior year, you get drafted by the Denver Nuggets, but you were still falling on hard times. So you definitely probably slipped in the draft a little bit. You would agree, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just had been in so much trouble. I treatment centers and failed drug tests, and you know, it was very public. And if it wasn't for Dan Issel, you know, Dan Issel had just an unbelievable heart. He was the general manager of the Denver Nuggets. He then became the head coach and replaced Mike D'Antoni. But you know, he just had such a soft spot for guys like me. And you know, I flew out there, I did my workout, and you know, he said, if you're at number 33, I'm going to grab you. And he held true to his word. And, you know, looking back, I don't know who would have taken the chance on me after 33. You know, there's a chance I would have slipped right out of it.
You've given a lot of chances for yourself. Did you ever feel like you were letting people down? You probably were letting people down, but you're like, all right, I'm going to fix it this time. So you go to Denver and away from everybody. Did you think you were going to fix everything, getting like way out of there?
You just listen. I think drug addiction is completely different today, right? Like the way you look at it. You know, when I was 23, 24 years old, I didn't have the respect for what drug addiction was. I didn't know. I was uneducated, unaware. The conversation is different today about drug addiction and the science behind it. And, so it was more of like a moral thing, and an ethical thing for me. And, I was always trying to chase that and try to prove people wrong. And, and drug addiction doesn't care about that. It's constant, it's present. It needs to be treated. If it's left untreated, it will come back. And that's at that age I was untreated.
Yeah, that must be the most difficult part of just like trying to learn everything. And like drugs back then were like not even like fully developed, and they were just like trying them out. And you got your blonde hair trying all these new drugs. You're like, oh, I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, it was it's again, I for me, guys learned really quickly that they didn't want to be around me, because once I start, I don't want to stop. Yeah. And even when there's a game coming up, and you're telling yourself like go home, get a few hours rest, but instead you decide to keep doing it. I was a sick kid. I was a sick kid at that age.
When you got the news that you got traded to Boston, was it the first thought was, oh my God, I'm playing for the Celtics? Or was it like, I'm going to be so much closer to my dealers that I can get drugs easier?
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I knew, it's much more accessible for me. I have so many people around me that, would love to party and take part in it with me. So getting traded to Boston was not a happy day for me. I mean, I was devastated, and not so much that I was going back to Boston and my drug addiction. I wasn't even really there. It was just the support I had and the people I was surrounded with in Denver that I was really going to miss. That year was probably the best year I ever had playing basketball, and to walk away from that and have to start over, for the Celtics was going to be a challenge, and not to mention everything else that came with it.
Right. Now, do you blame them at all? Like, I feel like you were very well known. Your whole story was well known, and the Celtics like, yeah, we'll give it a chance. And you know how it is in Massachusetts. A local guy comes home, everyone's supporting him, so everyone's excited. Everyone wants to party. Be like, oh, I want to buy Chris Herren a drink.
Yeah. No, you don't. No, you don't. So, I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. I mean, listen, coming up on 14 years sober, I'm very grateful. I'm grateful that it was Boston, because Boston is such a big sports city, and that it gave me this platform in recovery, right? It gave me like this opportunity. If I was a Sacramento King, my platform wouldn't be as profound, right?
Right.
Being a Boston Celtic, being from Boston area, that gave me this background that allowed me to have a platform to really talk about, recovery and addiction and how impactful it's been. So I'm grateful for the Celtics.
So your story continues. You go overseas, still doing drugs, getting into heroin, getting into more pills. Now let's talk about support systems. Your wife, Heather, was there the whole time. You're like selling money, like you're selling things for money, like little things here and there. Like how much of a, like you look back, you're like, thank Christ for her. Because if she wasn't in the picture, like who knows, it definitely would have gone south. Like support systems are a lot, and like how much that affected you from her.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know firsthand what it's like to be the person who loves someone who struggles with drugs and alcohol. You know what I mean? So it's not something that's foreign to me, right? I have family members, people who I really, really love that struggle. So I know what it was like. I know what her lens looked like. I just thank God that she had the ability to wait for me to find myself. I mean, I've known Heather since the 7th grade. She knew me long before drugs entered our worlds. And I just thank God she waited, and she gave me that chance to be, Christopher, Samantha, and Drew's dad, because, most people would be watching their kids grow up, right? Instead I'm part of it.
So you pretty much have a near-death experience where you pretty much legally died for 30 seconds
Mhm.
when you hit a pole. And so you get recovered in 2008, correct?
Yes.
So the one thing that I was trying to figure out is what made you want to become a motivational speaker? Like obviously you want to help others once you get there and you're
Yeah.
doing such a great job. What was that like? Like what went in your head? You're like, I'm gonna do it. Especially from a guy like, did you go to like college for like public speaking or anything? Because
No, no,
how'd you learn
I mean,
that?
listen, I never got my degree. I didn't go to college for school, sadly, right? And you say that it's an embarrassing thing to say. Um, but I never intended on being a public speaker. I mean, it was not even on my radar until this woman said, I want you to come to my classroom and talk to my health classes. Um, and I went there and I spoke to all 8 health classes, and she gave me a ride. She picked me up because I didn't have a license at the time. She drove me back home, dropped me off, got me some Dunkin' Donuts, and that was my day. Um, but what happened was she had friends at another school and said, like, let's try Chris Herren out. Let's bring him in. And then it just, now here we are 12 years later, and a couple of million kids in every state except Hawaii and Alaska. Um, you know, I have a schedule that is it makes the NBA schedule look soft. So
Right.
we do about 200 speaking events a year. So that's game time, right? I mean, I'm out there for it's an hour and a half window, and I have an hour and a half to go.
Right. And I appreciate you taking the time with me. I know we got to wrap up real soon. I just
Yeah,
want
yeah.
a quick question for people out there with addiction. What would you suggest to them, the ones that feel pressured? Like you said no the first time you were asked Coke. So someone's in that situation. What would you recommend them so they get pressured and like they're like, no, I'm good. Like what's the best way to say no and get away from all that?
I mean, listen, it's to not the best way to do it is to not even put yourself in the situation, right? But the reality is in today's climate, right? We're living in a world where fentanyl and carfentanil, I mean, it's just executing people. And people that come into my wellness centers and they come in for cocaine use, um, they'll have Adderall. I mean, they'll have fentanyl in their system. So you just never know what's in the line. So for me, for anybody who's walking into a room or at a house party and people are chopping up coke on the table, they're taking a chance at dying.
Yeah.
Like they are right there. Just know that once you hand that dollar bill off, when you bend down to do that line, think of your mom, your dad, your little brother, your sister, and there's a chance that they'll never see you again. And that's how sick it is, and it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Never mind what comes with it. The chance that you might not wake up, you might have fentanyl in it and might die from it to me is enough.
Right. And no, that's good advice because I always wondered that. It's like the whole dare system. It's like you got to get out there and
Yeah.
not be in that room. So let's
I mean,
finish up.
listen, it's like someone handing you a revolver and say, let's play Russian roulette.
Right.
Like, are you going to sit at the table and play Russian roulette? No, you probably call the ambulance for the person who's asking you to play.
Seriously.
Cocaine, opiates, and cocaine today are no different. Fentanyl wasn't in coke in the 80s and the 90s. Fentanyl's in coke today.
Yeah.
And coke and fentanyl kills. I mean, and that's the scary thing about it. But hopefully, we can push the narrative that, there is no more I dare you. It's not, or you're not tough enough to get down and do this with me and party with me. I just don't feel like taking a chance at dying today.
Do you still have idiots that still ask you if you want like a drink or anything?
No,
That's good.
no. You gotta have big balls to ask me that question.
That's fantastic. Yeah, so wrap up now. I can't thank you enough. And if anyone wants to learn more, go to herrentalks.com. Before we go to wrap this up, I got to ask, how was it playing with Skip to My Lou, Ray for Alston?
I didn't like him.
Really? Why?
No, it's just him and I wasn't on the same page.
Both guards,
both guards, but it just wasn't my. Listen, I wasn't his style, and I can look back on that moment. Rafer was more engaged, more disciplined,
Yeah.
More motivated than I was. His job was to be in the gym, and he worked really, really, really hard at it. So most likely it's my doing, but we just really weren't those type of guy. He wasn't my type of guy, so.
Yeah. And now, before I forget this too, marijuana is like a big thing that's helping people, the whole CBD craze and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you feel about that with addiction? Like, is it a gateway drug? Like, how do you feel about people that use marijuana in probably like quote unquote the right way?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's people who can, there's people who can't, right? There's people who can drink, there's people who can't drink. It's just, what are you willing to find out, right? Are you willing to lose? Are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to miss out? Like, the reality is, and I tell kids this all the time, and the amount of speaking I do amongst athletes, right? Whether it's Alabama football, Georgia football, Oregon football, you name it, I'm doing it. And there's a lot of kids in that locker room that look back on their childhood and wish their mom didn't smoke. A lot of kids in that locker room who didn't get the presents they thought they were going to get because mom was buying a whole lot of blunts and smoking it. So it's, at what level are you willing, to sacrifice? Marijuana helps people, I guess. I don't know. Right. I'm not a doctor. I just know that for someone like me, one's not enough. One is just never enough for me. And I've missed out enough on life. I don't want to miss anymore.
I like that. I like that a lot. Now, I do this with all my guests. We're going to wrap up here. If Chris Herren had a theme song, like you got called out, what would be in the background? Like, think of like if you're a professional wrestler, boxer, or just the starting five of the Celtics. What song's playing for you?
The only thing I can think of is I go back to my high school days, and it was Phil Collins. I Can Feel It. Like, that was our little, that's what we ran through the tunnel to. I'm a madman when it comes to sports, right? Like, I'm completely, my mindset is different than most. And, to me, it's like a war, it's like a battle when you're coming out. So music doesn't do it for me. I'm going to come at your neck regardless.
With dead silence in the background.
Yes,
I like it. All right, Chris, what are 3 things that you're grateful for today?
I'm grateful for my children. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my recovery, right? Like, that's the pillar, right? Those are the pillars of my recovery: family, faith, friends, all of that stuff. The people who hold me up, right? And the people who are willing to challenge me to get better.
Everyone loves a comeback story, Chris. I'm glad that you got sober. I'm glad that you recovered. I'm glad that suicide wasn't an option for you when that came across your mind. I'm loving what you're doing. You're a great human being, what you're doing, helping so many people. Never stop what you're doing. Hopefully we can cross paths at one time. But I thank you so much, Chris. This has been like an honor to talk with you. Such a local legend.
But what's the belt for?
Oh, this belt?
Yeah.
Why, you eyeing it?
Yeah, I'm eyeing it. What is it for?
Well, it's a wrestling belt, but I keep it up there because I'm trying to be the champion of this rock, paper, scissors thing that we did. I'm not doing too good, but at least I got a win over you. It's like that Nuggets team, like beating the Bulls back then,
Yeah. So listen, so why is that your thing, wrestling?
Yeah, I'm a big wrestling fan. Yeah. Who's your favorite wrestler?
My favorite wrestler, it could be the Von Erichs.
That's a great documentary too on the have you seen that documentary on Hulu?
Yeah, of course.
That's
the Von Erichs, when I was younger growing up, the Von Erichs, Junkyard Dog.
Yep.
He was classic. Ivan Putski.
Yep. Oh, your shit.
Oh yeah.
I was a Mr. Perfect, Ted DiBiase, Rick Rude.
Yeah, of course. Rick Rude, ravishing Rick. I mean, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
You know, he is a Ravishing Rick Rude is one of the best characters of all time.
100%. He's like, he called Cincinnati sweat hogs. He's like, let me take my robe off. The guy was ahead of his time, dude. That's so funny. But yeah, if you want to come, like, I'm in Massachusetts too. We could throw this on the line for another rock, paper, scissors in the future.
Absolutely. Well, listen, good talking to you, brother.
Round one, fight.
Real quick, I do this with all my guests, and I'd be amiss if I didn't ask you to do it with me. So I play a game of rock, paper, scissors, 2 out of 3 with all my guests, just to get it going. So we'll do 2 out of 3, hand up in front of the camera. You call it rock, paper, scissors whenever you're ready, sir.
Rock. Wait, hold on. What's the count? Well, how do you count it?
I feel like we're from the same state, so it's rock, paper, scissors, shoot. I'm gonna keep my eyes closed, so I'm not cheating you.
See, we just do it. Shoot. But go ahead. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Ooh, 1-0. 1-0. You're down the hole. Okay, go.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Ooh, 1-1.
Yeah, but you're going a little late. That's why I keep my eyes closed. All right.
I like the defense on you. I like it, though.
All right. Ready? Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
You win.
Oh, you got me.
Beat the great Chris Herren.
This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. If you are feeling suicidal, please dial 911.